Hello and welcome back to the Wellness with Delaney podcast. Today I'm sitting down with Chef James Berry. He is a professional chef with a twist. We are going to be talking all about ancestral eating today, what that means, what that looks like, how you can incorporate nose to tail when you are eating to promote health and sustainability, and more. If you are a beginner home cook and you're looking for ways to optimize your home chef experience so that you can create healthy and delicious meals for yourself, tune in. This is the perfect episode for you. I'm so excited to get into it. Chef James, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me, Delaney. It's a pleasure.
I'm so excited. So, what is ancestral eating?
Yeah, it's interesting when most people are thinking like, oh, the way we paleolithically ate, so they're looking at the paleo diet or they're thinking like that. But really, um, I think we need to kind of meet ourselves where we're at and not try to be cave people, but actually like just look back. Well, what did our grandparents eat? What did their parents eat? I think I think not going so far back is actually a little bit more, I don't know, achievable. When I talk about ancestral eating, I'm talking about eating whole animal. I'm talking about eating things instead of focusing on the what, I want you to focus on the how, because there's lots of discussions right now of like, oh, did people just eat animals only? It's like, well, no, that we were foragers. We were foragers, we were scavengers, we were predators. We were all three. And if there's anything like that that anthropologists have found is that we ate what was available. We weren't as choosy as people think because we just wanted to survive. And so really, like, what I always kind of advise people is like, okay, let's just say you are choosing to eat vegetables or grains or whatever your diet is, like, have the dignity of your process of your diet, but let's focus on how you eat them. So, for example, if
Mhm.
you're eating grains, let's soak them, let's sprout them, let's make them as nutriently available as possible. If you're eating vegetables like sauerkraut or something, like, let's culture them, let's make them dairy as well. Let's culture that dairy, let's make it as bioavailable as possible. And so that your body can actually absorb the nutrients, because as many of your guests have shared, Anthony Chafee being one of them, plants are designed to survive themselves. They are their own organism and they're going to protect themselves. That they have their own, structure to protect themselves. And what we need to do is use our large brain to figure out how to get that food that we're trying to eat to lower its defenses. And that's what, like, culturing and how you prepare it's going to do.
Amazing. So, with all of that, I think a lot of people might hear this and be like, okay, wait, that's a lot of work. So, what's the benefit? What is the overall purpose of prepping our foods and culturing them and finding the way our grandparents did it?
Yeah, well, let's just start with whole animal first of all, because whole animal is, sometimes some of the cuts of meat you do have to prepare them a little differently. Like, some of those cuts that most people aren't using, you're really only getting if you're getting like half a cow or a quarter cow. You got to cook longer. You got to braise them longer to actually soften the tissues, to soften things so that they can actually be edible. And that does take time, but it's passive time. We're talking like slow cooker, you know what I mean? But the key is that we're really focusing on getting the whole animal nutrients. And what's happening is people are just focusing on like ribeyes, for example, or let's just say if they are eating vegetables, they're only focusing like three vegetables, like broccoli, kale. They're like focusing on very specific things. And in no period of our lives has anyone ever done that. It's like, unless you're like a bodybuilder, where you eat the same thing every day, which is not a bad thing to do, but you got to make sure you're getting as many nutrients as you can. And so that's really the purpose, is you're focusing on nutrient dense foods, and then you're focusing on absorbability of those nutrients. And honestly, if we really boil down to it, it actually has little to do with the food, because I could feed you, as a chef, I could feed you the highest quality, best food in the world. But if you're not absorbing that food, then what's the point? So really, it all then goes back to the gut. So it's almost like you can't have a conversation about food quality without also talking about, well, what is your gut doing when you eat that food?
Mm, that is so interesting. So, with that being said, like, how did you even discover this? Did this start with the food or did this start with the gut for you?
Well, I think the gut is the gut is kind of like the second brain is a newer concept. I mean, that is a lot of that science is a lot newer. So I've been in the field now over 20 years. And I would say when I first got in, we're really always talking about when we're talking about health, we're talking about what do we know right now? And then what have we known in the past? And how do those converge? Because the reality is like what they did in the past may not even be right. And what we're currently doing may not even be right. But we can only do the best we can do. It's like that concept of do good until you know better and then do better. And so that's why I'm always kind of speaking at it from the perspective of like, you have to have the dignity of your process. Like I know your first episode of your podcast was about veganism, right? And how
Hmm.
it doesn't work, it didn't work for you, right? And how, if anything, it harmed you. And it's like, but you had to have that process to get to where you are now. And if you hadn't
Hmm.
had that process, you wouldn't be able to talk about food and nutrition and support people the way you do. So I really do believe we all have a journey. And what I advise is when people are on that journey around diet, instead of like looking outward for answers, actually look inward. And there's one person within inward, that will never lie to you, will never give you the wrong information, and that's your body. If you're on your soapbox and you're like, I am eating this way because I believe it's better for the planet and better for animals, great. But then what is happening to your body? If you're having skin issues, rashes, if you're bloated, if you're like constantly like hangry, if you have bad sleep, you have, foggy brain, like if you have these chronic illnesses showing up based on what you're eating, then that is your body telling you, hey, this isn't working. And so then it's about tweaking and constantly doing these things until you find, the diet or the lifestyle where your body's not screaming. But the reality is it's always going to be shifting, right? Because life, just like nature, it's living and breathing. So we're always having to ebb and flow and pivot and kind of like strategically kind of like maneuver whatever's going on in the world, whether it's emotionally or physically. So when I talk about ancestral eating, though, I want to focus less on diet and more on listening to your body. So that innate knowledge of what does your body need, first of all, because we're the only species in the entire world that looks to someone else to tell us what to eat. Every other species, and there's like 9 million of us, right? Out there in the world, species wise, and we're the only one that looks to someone else to tell us what to eat. So clearly, we knew at one point what to eat, but the only way to get back to that, even a hint of that, is you have to be mindful about what you choose and how it feels in your body. You have to choose nutrient dense foods. So those are foods that are ingredients versus have ingredients. And then you want foods that have flavors that are found in nature. So we want to work with the biological communication pathways that our bodies have developed for over hundreds of thousands of years. So we want to eat our food versus swallow it in capsules. We want to chew it. We want to be sitting down in parasympathetic mode. Like we want to use the body that we've been given to inform us and to kind of educate us on if the food we're eating is conducive towards what we want. And then the mindfulness comes in because it's all about, well, what is your desired goal? So you should be making
Mm.
choices based on the desired outcome you have. And that could be different for everybody.
Absolutely. That is an incredible. I mean, I think people really do get kind of caught in their ways. I know I have been that way where somebody's telling me this is the healthy way to eat, and I do it at the expense of my own body because I'm not listening to my body. And I've been there. I mean, that's what I was doing with the veganism. I see that a lot with people like, no, I was told this is right. I was told this is good, but they're not digging into their intuition, into their body's like biofeedback. So I absolutely agree. And I think it's really important for us to make sure we're looking at the results of our lifestyle and our diet and getting really just really curious and really pulling at the threads there, because that's how we're going to find out what's working for us. Okay, so I have to ask you, because I know that you are friends with Dr. Anthony Chafee and you are in the ancestral world. Are you pro carnivore or are you pro plants?
Oh, geez, yeah, I'm definitely pro whole animal. I mean, even Anthony and I we've had discussions about, or we had one discussion like where I was telling him like, have you ever done primal raw? Like so primal raw is where you eat raw meat. So it's not just meat, but anything that is raw. And he was like, well, most of the meat he eats isn't overcooked. It's pretty rare. So he's pretty close. But when I did that diet, so I was eating mostly raw buffalo or bison, and I did have a little bit of vegetables, but they were in form of like parsley, like herbs and stuff like that. And I did do some raw dairy as well and some raw honey. And honestly, it was the best I've ever felt in my entire life. I felt so good. I had amazing energy. I was eating less. I had I mean, everything dialed in. It just wasn't practical though. I had had a newborn, and we did it for 30 days, and we could do it so long because we had a newborn. But the minute like you're trying to live as part of a society, some of this stuff doesn't work. Like I've done strict carnivore, and I loved it. Like I loved that it was simple. I had no decision fatigue, like because you don't have to overthink what to eat. You're like, well, I'm eating meat. Like it was really there's no decision making. Um, and I like that a lot. But once again, I was listening to my body. So when I was on the carnivore diet, I actually started craving vegetables more. And I don't eat a lot of vegetables, but I was craving them when I was only eating meat. So I just tend to really just try to listen. I listen, but the key is that I also recognize that it's an imperfect system. And I don't mean our body is a perfect system in so many ways, but I mean we live in an imperfect world. So we're constantly being tempted, and our body is constantly being manipulated with these, Franken foods, and like these foods that fake our kind of what you would call our neural lingual response. So like we're basically sometimes eating foods, for example, that say it's strawberry flavored, right? But it has no strawberry and it doesn't have the nutrients of strawberries. So your body's literally being fooled into thinking like I'm eating something nutritious, because we are we're hardwired to think basically if something has flavor, that equaled nutrition back in the day. Because if you think about it, the simplest form of survival back in the day was, is this food going to kill me or nourish me? But that was quite serious, because obviously if you chose wrong, you could die. Um, but if you think about it, that is how our kind of knowledge of food and how our body communicates what it needs, that is what it's based on. So I really find like for example, I love flavor. Like I've always loved flavor. So for me, even when I was carnivore, I still use seasonings. And now some strict carnivore people don't even do that. They just use salt. But then there's some people that are like, oh, well, I don't even add salt because there's already salt in food, which is true. So it's like if you want to go down the rabbit hole, you really can, and you can get really like granular about what you are willing to accept and what you're willing to not accept. I just personally find that that's not why I'm on this planet. Like we are on this planet for such a short time. So I just think that whatever diet you're choosing, I want it to fit the criteria which I mentioned. I want it to have flavors that are found in nature. I want it to be nutrient dense, and then I want to mindfully eat it. Like I want to be when I eat it, I want to be really mindful about how it's affecting my body, how it feels, right? So that's my first criteria. The second criteria is like, is it meeting my desired outcome? So if my desired outcome is to be fit and to be harder to kill, then I'm not going to be eating all the sugar and the junk and the foods that are going to make me feel doughy and kind of soft, right? I'm going to eat the foods that keep me more lean. And even in that scenario, that means I have to be more mindful of how much fat I eat. And I know some people, um, don't agree with that, like that follow, say, the keto diet. They're like, oh, I can just eat all the fat I want. I personally find that that does not work for me. Like if I eat too much fat, doesn't matter how clean the fat is, it converts to fat. You know what I mean? I gain weight. So, once again, even as I'm making choices, I'm being mindful of like my desired outcome. How does it feel in my body? And then my ultimate goal is to try to eat as much of the animal as possible. So that means not just ribeye, that means not just one part of the animal, but as much of the animal. So I'm talking the organ meats, I'm talking different kind of muscle meats. And if I can just eat within that criteria, I find I feel really good. And so yeah, it does sometimes include some vegetables and some fiber, but for the most part, it's pretty much meat, a little bit of veg, and fat. That's pretty much what I eat.
Okay, I'm kind of on the same lately where I'm not fully carnivore, but I would say I'm more like animal based. And just trying to listen to my body and figure out what that looks like for me. And what I love is your approach of that nose to tail and eating every part of the animal that you can eat. So, okay, let's start with organs. Like, how do you eat organ meats?
Yeah, well, I'm personally, maybe there's a lot of people like me, but I don't actually like organ meats. I know that
Mhm.
first of all, a lot of people think they're gross, which is not actually accurate. Like people are associating like the taste of liver with all organs, but brain, for example, is actually quite good, and it's got a slight sweetness to it. And there's other parts of the animal like menudo. Menudo is a Mexican dish. It's kind of like it uses beef stomach, and I know a family whose kids request menudo on their birthday. So it's their birthday food. It's that kind of warming and delicious. So a lot of foods that contain organ meats can be absolutely delicious. I didn't grow up like that. And so I tend to default towards like, well, what's the easiest but most delicious way I can get those in my body? Because I want the nutrients, but I don't necessarily want the hassle of it. And that's why I created a product called Pluck. And so I created this seasoning that's got liver, heart, kidney, spleen, and pancreas in it. And we're gonna have other parts of the animal in it. But that is the main way I get organs into my diet. I would say the other way is I do ancestral blends. So I'll take ground meat and I'll grate. It's one of the ways I advise people actually just to ease organ meats in your diet. Like Pluck is probably like the first kind of easiest way. But then I would say the next way to do it is you either buy a grind, a blend that's already together, like Force of Nature has one. There's a bunch of them out there, but they're usually about 7 to 10% organ meat, and they usually only have like liver and heart, sometimes kidney, but mostly liver, heart. And those are really easy to get into your diet, but you can also make your own. So one of the best ways to get any animal product is to get it from either your local ranch farmer or to go to like the farmer's market and find them there. And when you do buy, let's just say if your first organ you buy is like a liver, usually it will come to you frozen. Well, I always recommend people just leave it frozen because it gets really, what's overwhelming about it is when it's defrosted, not when it's frozen. When it's frozen, it's like, oh, you don't even have to think about it. It doesn't feel overwhelming. And so whenever you're doing any ground meat, whether it's turkey or beef or bison or even chicken, it doesn't matter what kind of species, but as long as it's ground, you can just take that liver out of the freezer and grate it right into the ground meat. And now you have your own ancestral blend. So there's ways to either buy it already done, to do it yourself, and then just since we're already on this conversation around how to ease organ meats in, I would say the other one that I recommend is chicken hearts. It's just such an easy entry because they don't have a strong taste. They're really mild. They're small. You can chop them up like you would a mushroom, throw them in a sauce if you eat spaghetti sauce or a stew or a soup, and no one will even know it's in there. They'll just think it's a mushroom or something. So those are like kind of like three ways you can just easily start getting organ meats into your diet. But what's really cool about that when you do start to ease organ meats into your diet, and this is something that we probably all deal with on a daily basis, but most of us aren't really identifying that this is the primary issue of why we're dealing with this, is picky eating. And so a lot of us are making decisions around food, and we're saying, well, I'm eating this way because it's my diet. But really it's because you're picky. You know what I mean? Like, we're using the diet as the excuse. And that's, it's no different than people that are really introverted, how they're still masking up. It's like they're using COVID as their excuse for staying, introverted, right? It's like this, it's like that's what we tend to do. And so our palate, when we're picky, it's really just because our palate is skewed. So, and we just need to recalibrate it. So most American standard diet palates are salty sweet. Those are the two flavors that are just where your palate is skewed towards. And that's because American food, it's all salty sweet. No matter whether you buy it in a grocery store, restaurant, doesn't matter. It's all salty sweet. Well, we have two other tastes that we learned in grade school. That's bitter and sour. And then there's a fifth one called umami. And organ meats are naturally umami. So just by starting to eat those ancestral blends or the chicken hearts or even pluck, like just by starting to use those foods in your other foods, your palate will start to recalibrate, and you will actually start to like organ meats. And once you start to recalibrate your palate and you like organ meats, now it's like the whole world opens up, because now you really can be more adventurous with your palate. And then as your world opens up and you start eating the whole animal, you suddenly start to see all those, nagging chronic illnesses that we were talking about earlier. They all kind of just start to go away, because eating whole animal is like eating Mother Nature's multivitamin. It's like it's all there. And yet what's happening is we're eating the muscle meat is about 50% of the animal, and that's what we're eating. We're discarding the other 50%, and then we're having all these chronic issues, and then we turn to the supplement industry and we're buying capsules, and we're swallowing
Mm.
capsules to compensate for the fact that we're not eating whole animal.
Yeah. So, okay, with that, can you tell me some of the health benefits? Like, I hear nature's multivitamin, and like I'm pretty familiar with the organs, but I think a lot of people are probably like, this is crazy, right? And so, for somebody who is just learning or maybe didn't even realize until today that there's a health benefit to eating organs, what are some of the main health benefits?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and what's kind of cool is they all have health benefits. There's this concept called like supports like. So the organ you're eating is supporting that part in you. So, and that's really true with, for example, with like heart. So beef heart is twice as rich in riboflavin, which is B12, as muscle meat. So it's higher than muscle meat. It's a great source of what we call coenzyme Q10. And that's an anti-fatigue, anti-aging nutrient. And if anyone has ever taken any cardiovascular supplement, it usually has CoQ10 in it. So what the supplement industry is doing is they're supplementing what you're not getting in your food. But if you just ate the beef heart, you'd be getting what they're trying to supplement you with. So it's kind of like stupid. It's so like, oh, so I just need to eat the real food and then I don't have to take the supplement. But heart has the CoQ10. I mentioned it protects against cardiovascular disease, infertility, and even mitochondrial dysfunction. The pancreas has also got a lot of B12, but it's also high in selenium, which can help maintain proper thyroid function and promote metabolism. It also, what's cool about the pancreas is it has natural enzymes. So it has a lipase, and it has actually a bunch of different enzymes. But what's cool about it is when you eat pancreas, you don't need to take pineapple enzymes to help you digest your food. The food itself is helping you digest everything else. That's why we have pancreas and pluck. Spleen, high in iron, it's rich in vitamin A and vitamin B5. And that's going to even help you oxygenate your skin. So you're going to see better skin from eating spleen. And spleen is even higher in iron than liver, but yet liver is the one everyone's talking about. Kidney, rich in B12 as well, selenium, heme iron, and it contains a balance of copper and zinc, which a lot of people are actually deficient in, is the copper and zinc actually. And it contains amino acids. But in general, it's not only is it they're a good source of protein, but it's very absorbable iron. It helps maintain, muscle mass because it's got all 9 essential amino acids. It's a great source of the choline, which I mentioned a little earlier, but that's essential. Choline is essential for it's an essential nutrient that benefits the brain, the muscle, and the liver. It's rich in peptides. Peptides is a big word right now, like which are small amino acid molecules, and it's got a lot of them. And it also it's rich in fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A, D, E, and K. And and what's it's kind of the one thing that doesn't get brought up a lot. But I mentioned the like supports like. But then the last one I would mention is that anyone that feels the pinch of how expensive food has gotten, when we talk about like, oh, you should be eating 100% grass-fed beef, like people are always promoting that. Well, that's expensive. Like the ribeye itself could be like $25 to $35 a pound, right? So what's cool is that same cow, the 100% grass-fed cow, has a tongue, has all these organs, has all these other cuts that are not as expensive, and sometimes they're even three times less expensive than that ribeye. So if you want to lower your grocery bill, eat more whole animal, and you'll see you pay less because you're not getting the cuts that are so desired, but you're getting the ones that are more nutrient dense.
Wow, okay, this is really fascinating. It's like your food is a multivitamin, or in this case, your seasoning. Like if somebody's buying Pluck, your seasoning not only provides all the richness of flavor, but it's basically like swiping your nutrient, like or your like supplement cabinet and replacing it with something that tastes good, that adds to your meal, helps you digest, and like all the things. I mean, you're talking about pancreas. I know I'm naturally really deficient in selenium. I'm like, wait, I don't think I take pancreas. That's crazy to me. And I know a lot of people are going to like definitely be rethinking some of their food choices now, especially in this economy when it can be so hard to buy all these choice cuts, yet we have these foods available to us. Are you a big fan of using bones as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the feeling. So one of the things, and if anyone's had bone broth, you're going to identify. You may use different language, but you're going to identify what I'm about to say. So really, food is information. So when we talk about like ancestral eating, it isn't a diet; it's a blueprint. And basically, when you eat these foods that your body recognizes, it's telling your body, hey, we're safe. We are supported, right? Because, like I said, back in the day, the information was, is this going to nourish me or kill me? And if it nourished you, you felt safe. You felt supported by the environment, your life was good because our lives were a lot simpler then, either live or die, right? When you return to real, whole, nutrient dense foods, your body responds by repairing and regenerating. And anyone that's had bone broth, for example, you probably feel that. You drink the bone broth and you feel this warming throughout your body. And when I drink it, I feel my body kind of curl in itself and it feels so supported and so loved. And it feels so clean when I drink it. And it's like, oh, that's not just because it's healthy for you. It's because this is what your body knows. This is what your body wants. And then your body you're feeding it these foods that are part of its own blueprint, like the DNA of a plant, for example. If anyone's ever done like plant medicine, they talk about what people that do the plant medicine can see, they learn things from the plant, right? So there's all this kind of history that's kept in the plant, like the ayahuasca plant, for example. And the same thing is when we get ancestral foods in this body, the same thing happens. There's like almost a remembering that happens.
That is so beautiful. Oh my gosh, I love that. And I relate to that a lot. There's like this primal sense of like connection that happens when you're eating this way where you feel connected to your food on so many levels. You're connecting to what people used to eat, you're connecting to the source, versus like eating food that comes out of this just bag that it's been completely processed to look like something else. There's no connection there on so many levels. And now I'm wanting to drink a big mug of bone broth after hearing that.
Oh, the
But
the
that is
best is you get the bone broth and then you either add, some of like the chicken hearts or you even add Pluck
mhm.
seasoning. And it's like you increase because the bones. So there's really two types of broths, and a lot of people confuse them. So one is meat stock and one is
Mhm.
bone broth. And the catch one is the bone broth, but actually meat stock, for someone that's new to this kind of way of eating, meat stock is actually the way you want to go. And if you want like the most nutritious, like not the most nutritious, but the most warming, kind of most immune boosting drink, is so what you do is you create some meat stock. You take a whole chicken, the whole carcass, everything, the meat, the skin, the whole chicken. Just make sure you pull out the bag of giblets, because you don't want to like boil plastic inside your chicken. So pull that bag out, and then you put the chicken in a pot, you cover it with water, and then you can add a little bit of apple cider vinegar if you want, but that's it. Okay. You just let it simmer on the stove for about an hour and a half, just as long as the meat of the chicken is not red or pink. So make sure it's cooked through, and that's usually about an hour and a half, depending on the size of the chicken. Then strain out that water, which is now meat stock. You can still eat the chicken meat. Like, don't waste that. You could still, fork it and make it into some kind of dish. Like, you can turn it into like chicken tacos, or I don't know, or even chicken salad, whatever you want. But the meat stock that you get from that chicken it's just so light and gentle. And so anyone that has digestive distress or anything, like, this is the entry drink. Like, this will just start helping your gut to repair. It will help your body, to do what we talked about earlier, that repairing and regenerating. It's so beautiful, such a delicious drink. And then when you're ready and you're feeling like you can handle more robust stuff, then you go to the bone broth later on, which is basically the same concept, but you're doing it longer, and you're just doing the bones instead of the meat is on the bones and whatnot. So you're just doing bones, and you can do any animal bones. You could still add some of the apple cider vinegar if you want, but for the most part, you're just simmering it a lot longer, like between 4 to 24 hours, depending on what you're trying to do.
Amazing. Yeah, I've never tried meat stock, but I'm very curious to try it. That's such a fun way to make a drink for people who are a little bit grossed out by the bone broth. I love it. I just throw it in the slow cooker for 24 hours. My home smells so good, and I like just absolutely enjoy it so much. So I know that you are somewhat of an expert on the connection between emotional health and food, and we've kind of touched on that with this topic in bone broth, but I'd love to hear more about this topic and kind of dig into it. So how does our eating style connect to emotional health?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, most of the foods that people gravitate towards or dislike are usually tied to our emotional state. It's it's not like, oh, I hate this food. It's like, no, it's probably connected to who cooked it, how old you were when you were exposed to it, and how they cooked it. And so there's definitely this kind of sense of like, food is emotional. Like, eating is emotional. And so what I think is really important, and it's always strange because here I am a chef and I'm telling people to do this, but I really think it is important that when we talk about food, that we actually start to separate the emotions from it as much as we can. So a lot of times people say, I love whatever the food is, like, I love French fries. It's like, okay, take that emotion of I love and put that towards people. Like, I love my wife. I love my kids. Like, use that kind of energy towards things that truly matter, like that, towards the people and the connections and community. Those things absolutely deserve that kind of energy. But when we put that kind of emotion on the food, we're kind of almost like establishing a connection that is beyond what that food can ever deliver. Like, food is fuel. That's what it always has been. It only became something other when, throughout these ages of like where we had, cooks cooking for kings, and it became this whole other level, and now we have all these food shows and these celebrity chefs. And it's like, but we have to remember it's just fuel. And when we put so much energy towards like the food, we also put our energy towards ourselves. And I can't even tell you in my 20 years, like how many people I see that are so hard on themselves that they don't love to cook. Most people don't love cooking. Like the majority of people don't like cooking, but yet they feel like they have to because they eat. And I'll be the first to say it's like it's just not true. Just like I don't love cleaning my house. There are some people that love cleaning their house. It's like we don't all have to do these things. We don't all have to love these things. But what we can do is kind of readjust or recalibrate our relationship to them. And so even when I'm talking about like, okay, how, because really what this boils down to is like we have to eat from home. We have to. It's integral to your health. If you want to be healthy, if that's your desired outcome, you need to learn how to enjoy making food from your own kitchen, because that's the only way you can be in control of the ingredients. That's the only way that you can choose the ingredients that serve the outcome you want. Restaurants, grocery stores, those are businesses. They have bottom lines. They are never out there for your health. They're out there for their profit. They might have a health paradigm that they're supporting or they're building their business off of, but they are there to profit. So they are going to cut corners in certain places unless they're truly like a very, very high end, farm to table kind of restaurant. But when they are, they're so expensive that most people can't eat there every day, right? Every meal, every day, right? So truly you need to change the relationship within your own kitchen. And so I get it though that sometimes we don't love cooking, but what we can do is focus on the environment. And you can change the colors in your kitchen to be more conducive towards colors you like. You can put on your favorite music, your favorite podcast, whatever, you can dance around. You can literally make sure you're surrounded by people that you really feel joy around. Like create the environment that's going to be conducive towards cooking your own food. And then the other thing is don't have food in your kitchen that doesn't meet your desired outcome. So for me, for example, like if I have junk food in my kitchen, I will figure out how to eat it. Even if it's stuff I don't like, I will literally figure out how to eat it. I will make up some story, some excuse. I don't like this, but gosh, I just want something, or I deserve something, or, oh, it was a hard day. I deserve this, or, oh, it was a great day and I want to reward myself with that, right? There's always some excuse to bend towards these things. So I just don't even bring it into the house. And then that way it forces me to work hard to get it. And I find it most of the time I don't want to work hard to get it. Like I don't want to like go out of my way to get it. I just, I'll just settle with, you know, the hunger pains, or it's not even hunger pains. It's more like the craving pains. Like I'll just let those pass. Um, and then I would say the last thing to kind of change that emotional connection to the food is try not to follow recipes, follow formulas. So we were talking about earlier about certain food. Like if you're carnivore, that's like one of the easiest formulas around, because I just cook your meat, you're done. You know what I mean? Salt, meat, done. Um, but for the most part, it's like most of us are eating some kind of protein, some kind of fat, some kind of vegetable, and then maybe some resistant starch or some kind of carb, something like a sweet potato, whatever it is. And so just pick your poison, like kind of pick the thing that meets that, but don't worry about the recipe. Just kind of like, okay, if I'm making something Asian, I might choose pork or chicken. I might then choose, if I was using a vegetable with it, I might use bok choy. I might use coconut oil as the fat, and then I might include Japanese sweet potato, or like I don't know, bamboo shoots or, I'm going to pick something that fits that genre of whatever I'm creating, but I'm not worrying about how much of everything. Just make sure that, the protein's the highest amount and go down from there.
I love that. It really breaks it down in an easy way. I think people do get caught up in this, like, I have to make these elaborate dishes. But when you follow that formula, it's so much easier and you can make things that are very tasty. I think there's also a level of like you grow your intuition for flavor. I mean, I personally never use recipes, but I feel like I'm a good cook. But I think what it is like when you're interacting with these ingredients, you begin to kind of be inspired when it comes to flavor and you kind of build an understanding of what works with what. And I love that level of intuition. It makes it a little bit more fun in the kitchen, like a science experiment. So, kind of with that, with this beginner cooking idea, like what are some of your favorite easy dishes for somebody who is lost in the kitchen but wants to learn how to cook from home?
Well, I'll tell you right away, if you're cooking for anybody, they're coming over to your house. If you want them to be just like walk through your door and go, "Oh, it smells so good in here. What are you making?" Like, if you want that, all you got to do is saute some onions and garlic, either one or the other or both. The smells, the aromatics that come from those immediately just make people go like, "What is that smell? It's so good." Um, and then the other kind of quick tip is just use a little bit of lemon zest in things. It really does make food pop. But I would say the first thing for anyone that is trying to get healthier is I would make your own dressings or sauces. Just focus on that alone. Like, so even if you buy, you go to your market and you're buying the meat that's already cooked, fine, if that's where you're at, but then make your own dressing or sauce. So one of the quickest ways to make dressings, for example, is to once again follow a formula. And it's a ratio, actually, it's 3 to 1. So when I say 3 to 1, I'm talking 3 parts of fat or oil and 1 part acid. So that could be some kind of vinegar or lemon juice or lime juice, anything like that. So if I was making a balsamic vinaigrette, I would do 3 tablespoons, because the parts has to be equal. 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar. And I would put it in a mason jar and I would shake it and I'd be done. You could add salt and pepper, you could add pluck, you could add shallots, you could add whatever else you want, but it's truly that simple. You don't have to be elaborate. And then from there, I would just start with like sauteing. You could, of course, you can get an air fryer or a slow cooker, but I find just a saute of something, like, you just got to cut it up to kind of uniform size. So if I'm eating chicken breast, instead of leaving the whole thing, in one piece, I would cut it up so they're about the same size, and I would just saute them in the fat of my choice, whether it's lard or ghee. Those are the 2 I kinda gravitate towards the most. And ghee is clarified butter for those that aren't familiar with it. It's been around for over 5,000 years. It's just an extremely, like, it's Ayurvedic food, so it's very, like, what do you like, holistic, I guess is the best word. It's very clean, but it's clarified butter is where it's the dairy of the milk is removed, so you just have the butter, the fat, and it's really, really clean, and it's got a slight buttery taste to things, so I use that when I want that in there. um Duck fat is really good if you're ever making potatoes. They go extremely well together. But I use duck fat sometimes for other things as well. And and then really it's just like saute it in saute the meat in some of that fat, and then add your seasoning. If you're adding vegetables, just add it all to the pan. But you just let the meat cook a little bit first. And that's kinda, I just try to keep it really simple. And I'm a big advocate of meal planning, so the more you can batch cook, the better, because one of the biggest things we all run into is that decision fatigue, which I talked about earlier. It's like, it's dinner time and we haven't planned, and so that's when we make poor choices. It's like, "Oh, I didn't plan, I guess I'll go eat out," and we already established eating out, you're not gonna be healthy. So really it's planning. And so I like to have as much as possible already cooked in the refrigerator. So all I have to do is just heat some things up or eat it cold or something. And then that way also you're really only focusing on dinners and just making more of that dinner and then eating that for leftovers for your lunch. So you always have, kind of like a pattern of your eating where you don't have to overthink it. There's always food ready that's kind of already prepared in your kitchen and it's available very quickly. I find that timing and then decision fatigue really do contribute to us making poor choices.
Absolutely. I love these tips. I'm going to be writing all these down because I think these will actually probably all help me as well. And I feel like I'm already comfortable in the kitchen, but it makes it easy. I like all the planning. I like all the different ways that you kind of go about it. It makes it feel a little bit less scary for people who I know a lot of people in my generation are scared of the kitchen and want to learn how to become good chefs. So, where can people connect with you? Where do people shop Pluck? Like, I know I want to go try Pluck after listening to this. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, Pluck is, I mean, as a chef, I really focus on flavor. But Pluck is, like I said, like I don't like eating organ meat. So that's my way of getting organs into my diet. It's as easy as salt in your food. And then you're getting those 5 organs. And you're getting basically the microdosing of those 5 organs all the time. Every time I eat, I put them on everything, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And so you can find Pluck at eatpluck.com, or you can find us on Amazon as well. And then you can find us on socials at Eat Pluck. I'm Chef James Berry, but we have tons of recipes and we're really, yes, we're selling a product, but we're really we're really about supporting people and eating whole animal. I truly believe that if more of us ate whole animal, we would not need to supplement our diets as much as we do. And I almost, I heard this quote recently and I just thought it was cute and funny, but it's like, you don't need a cupboard full of supplements. You need a few bites of what your great grandmother called dinner. It's
Love that.
really that simple, but we just have to commit when we're doing that dinner to have it not be some pre-prepared, store-bought dinner, but that it's whole animal based.
I love that so much. I mean, our nutrition should come from food, right? We shouldn't rely on pills and tablets and sachets and everything and all the nutrition we need when God like has it right there for us. I mean, I think it's pretty incredible what is available for us if we can just learn how to do things ancestrally. So thank you so much, Chef Barry. I learned so much from this episode, and I know that the audience is going to really learn from this. I know people are hungry for that no pun intended, hungry for that ancestral way of living. They're seeing the glow that people have when they follow this and they want to know how they can get it. So I think this is really going to help get them on the right track. You guys, thank you so much for listening. And if you want to shop Pluck, I will make sure to put a link in the bio of this show so that you guys can grab it for yourself. I know I will be shopping it because it sounds absolutely incredible and life-changing. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Chef James, thank you so much.